we really understand public green space as critical urban infrastructure. As a designer, what's particularly exciting about this is that it's multifaceted. It's not a single-use infrastructure, and it really has these co-benefits that have impact across both physical infrastructure and social networks. And really, as we see it, it's the combination of these two, the integration of these two within the design process that really leads to the ability of designers and planners to create community resilience. We really found that the way that we kind of tap into the social infrastructure side is by forming these key partnerships with local institutions that are mission driven.
And so I am representing work that I have done through the West Atlanta Watershed Alliance. We are a community-based organization that works in the Proctor, Utoy, and Sandy Creek watersheds. And we believe that process is just as important as the results. What people sometimes don't know is that there has been a legacy of engagement in the Proctor Creek watershed that spans over a century, in terms of people who've lived in this watershed have been the ones to elevate the issues and challenges with respect to environmental injustices that have essentially existed for that amount of time. And so what we tend to try to do is to lift up the work that community residents are doing. So I have just a few pictures coming up of some of this, what we call community science work. Many people call it citizen science, but that work has spanned a lot of different areas, from water quality monitoring that you see here on this slide, what we call participatory mapping to look at areas that are challenged by illegal dumping, also areas that have been challenged by inadequate stormwater infrastructure. And that work has also included community residents working with federal agencies like the US EPA to do things like conduct fish and crawfish surveys of Proctor Creek to get an understanding of just what life exists in the creek and how pollution might be impacting that life. This type of collaboration is what we really need to make sure that Proctor Creek ends up being playable, swimmable, and fishable again. This is the authentic community collaboration and engagement. It's building and investing in the social infrastructure. It's seeing community residents as part of the solution, not just those who we inform about what we're doing to restore this watershed. We are engaging them in making sure that we have the proper diagnosis of the issues and challenges in the watershed, whether we're talking about pollution or challenges with stormwater infrastructure and flooding. And it's also about making sure that those residents are a part of implementing those solutions.
So a neighborhood that you probably didn't hear a whole lot about after Sandy was East Harlem, which is located in Upper Manhattan. So on the left of this image, you see Central Park, and on the right, the Harlem River. We were interested in this question of what would it mean to anchor this planning process in what we could consider, a great example of social infrastructure in this neighborhood, East Harlem. And so this is Dream Charter School. It's a high school in East Harlem that we partnered with on this project. Our vision is all about how do parks become part of climate resilient system? How do parks become interconnected? And how do those interconnections bring residents in the neighborhood to the waterfront? First, we developed what we called a decentralized approach for storing and retaining and managing stormwater. We developed a series of prototypes for public spaces that integrate stormwater management into public space. So many public housing developments in New York City have these basketball courts and handball courts. Here we were looking at how you could adapt one of those spaces to create a water square for surface storage of water. And then the third principle was adapting the waterfront. And looking at ways in which the waterfront might be elevated over time to provide coastal protection for hurricanes. And we've continued this work with the Parks Department. Starr Whitehouse is currently designing a waterfront park at 125th Street in Upper Manhattan, and integrating the principles from the resilience plan into the design of this new space. So that's the kind of technical and design aspect of our plan. But at the same time, we developed a process through DREAM for involving young people in a very meaningful and active way in this planning process. And so one aspect of that process was a course that we taught about climate resilience to students at DREAM. The curriculum, it's taught by designers and planners from our team, and it covers really the whole spectrum from design to social considerations for climate resilience. So the students learn about the neighborhood, the ecological history. They work with a sociologist to think about demographics and population and risk. And then as landscape architects and designers, we work with the students to design green infrastructure and think about the transformation of public space. The students in many ways became the trusted ears for the community and for institutions and nonprofits that were involved in this process. So they spoke at our advisory committee meetings. These students in the upper right were speaking in front of hundreds of members of the public at a community forum. And their involvement in this process then led to further action from the students. On the upper right, the student in the white shirt, Aaliyah, he actually spent the summer after this plan working for the Manhattan Borough President and speaking to community boards around the city about resilience. And so this process really led to real opportunities for students to engage in the civic process. The students conducted a survey of residents to find out emergency needs, and then we worked together to create this guide to emergency preparedness that is specifically about this community, and we distributed these to 500 families in the development. And the second and ongoing action that the students are taking is the creation of green infrastructure in this neighborhood. And so our team, again, supported the students to do everything that landscape architects do. We evaluated sites, we did percolation tests, we did soil tests, we did a planting plan, and together designed a way to improve the social space with green infrastructure at the Washington houses.
The majority of our students come in via a lottery. So the majority of our students live in the public housing that surrounds the community. And so many of them, through this experience, were able to see parts of the neighborhood that they have never seen before and have experiences and meet people who they otherwise might not have had the opportunity to interact with. So there's a growth in students' cultural capital that we see having a true benefit, not only on their current outcomes, but their long-term outcomes. I've seen quite a few students pictured have a significant change in their orientation towards justice. These are their homes. So for students to process the inequities that exist in their communities, the curriculum was able to respond to their lives and their experiences in a way that their traditional curriculum does not. We also saw teachers grow through being able to see the work that the students were doing via this program. So teachers are able to see what it looks like to take students outside to learn, what it looks like to really engage students in activities and work that respond to their experience and the outside world.
I'm going to pick it up and bring us back to Atlanta. We partnered with Wawa and Itaki and also Spelman College. Youth education really at the heart of it. So how do we not only engage youth in the design process, so they're working through some of these ideas, at generating design ideas, but also how do we design the site to support youth educational programming well past the point of construction. We developed a conceptual plan. which really starts at the surface level of managing stormwater. And so here it's about utilizing this entire small site to maximize every square inch of it to support this much larger drainage basin, and then doing so in a way that that weaves its way through the site in a very circuitous fashion, so that you're elongating not only the course of the stormwater, but elongating the potential experience that the community can have, and then layering on top of that this system of paths and congregation pods to really maximize these opportunities for interactions between people themselves, but also between people and natural processes. And then finally, how do we sort of create habitat by introducing native plants to not only create beauty to enhance the social experience, but also to sort of expand the agency of the site to the larger open space network beyond. And so through this sort of multifaceted approach, what we hope to achieve here is really much larger impacts than the site design itself in this particular site, sort of through these educational programming, and then also just providing this beautiful amenity for social congregation. And so we really see it kind of as the pebble in the pond that ripples well beyond the point where the pebble lands.